I was tricked into marriage. After I got pregnant, I accidentally discovered my husband was in love with another woman. He only married me to have a child. He'd been walking on eggshells the whole time, only daring to start fooling around again after he was sure I was carrying his baby. But I come from a line of witches. I practiced the old magic. The vows he made to me were sealed by a blood curse, and that curse is now coiled in his gut. The moment he breaks his promise, his life force and his fortune will all belong to me. Who were you with last night? I asked Ryan. No one. Don't overthink things, honey, Ryan said dismissively, but his eyes darted away from mine. I stared at him coldly. 3. He looked up, confused. 3 what? A bloodthirsty smile slowly spread across my face. This is your third and final chance to get on your knees, beg for my forgiveness, and admit what you've done. Are you crazy? Ryan exploded. Don't get all high and mighty just because you're pregnant. He slammed the door on his way out. I looked at the open doorway and smiled slowly. Don't blame me, Ryan. You're the one with a death wish. No one messes with a woman who knows blood magic, unless they're ignorant of how powerful we are. I inherited my family's magic from my great-grandmother, becoming the strongest of my generation. After growing up in my small mountain town for more than a decade, I got into a university and came to live in the big city I'd always dreamed of. To everyone else, I was just a quiet, clueless country girl from a poor rural area. And it was true that I was naive about the ways of the world. I didn't know Apple was a phone brand, I didn't recognize designer labels like Louis Vuitton, and my English had a thick accent. When I first started school, I worked hard to learn how normal girls acted and dressed, so I could fit into modern society. In my senior year, I was an intern at a company where my supervisor, Ryan, fell for me at first sight. He was utterly smitten and told me with deep sincerity that he wanted to marry me. I was awkward and didn't know how to dress, a plain face in a sea of trendy modern girls. My family didn't have much money, so I was always broke, and I probably reeked of poverty. On top of that, I was quiet and needed to practice my craft in quiet corners of the woods, which made me a total loner. In 4 years of college, not a single guy had asked me out. I never expected to be pursued by a handsome, gentle, and considerate man the moment I started my internship. Mia, I'm so moved by your authenticity. You're so pure, so different from other girls, Ryan told me, handing me a bouquet of roses. His confession was heartfelt, his eyes full of devotion. He was tall and handsome, a manager at the company, and I heard his family was pretty well off. Mia, you've got a rich kid after you, the other girls from my program said, their words dripping with envy. I was a little excited, thinking my chance at love had finally arrived. Having never been in a relationship, I was completely swept off my feet by Ryan's sweet talk and gentle affection. I agreed to be his girlfriend, and we began a sweet, innocent romance. He held an umbrella for me in the rain, held my hand when we walked, and took me out to dinner and movies on the weekends. It was all like a scene from a rom-com. Within a month, my relationships with Ryan and his sister, Jenna, grew incredibly close. Jenna was Ryan's younger sister, a sweet and well-behaved girl who supposedly had a congenital heart condition. Every time Ryan mentioned her, his heart ached. The two siblings were extremely close. Jenna would often show up when Ryan and I were on dates, sweetly calling me her sister-in-law, and taking us out to eat. Over time, my bond with her naturally deepened as well. I called my family and told them I was dating Ryan. They asked, "And his family is okay with him marrying you?" "He's the one who insists on being with me. I didn't pursue him," I explained. "He truly loves me. If you both feel that way, then it can work. You must treat him well in the future," my great-grandmother advised. I nodded and said I would. The women in my family are direct. I asked Ryan, "Do you love me?" Ryan said, "Mia, I truly love you. I'm not lying." To prove his love, he took me to meet his parents. As soon as they saw me, they were eager for Ryan and me to get married. Only Jenna pouted a little. Ryan pulled Jenna into a room to talk for a bit, and when they came out, Jenna had completely accepted the idea of me being her sister-in-law. I felt like I was in a dream, having gained the approval of his family so easily. Soon after, Ryan proposed. I thought it was too fast, but he begged and pleaded, even emotionally blackmailing me with lines like, "Are you just playing with me?" I told him, "Give me one day." In my hometown, a woman of my line can take up to 3 husbands. But usually men fear us, so it's rare for one to actively seek marriage. It's always the woman who chooses her man, and whoever she picks must marry her. I had never met a boy who pursued me so passionately, and he was so insistent that I decided to take him as my husband. I went back to my room, took out the binding charm, and placed it in a small box. The next day, I found him and told him the truth about who I was. "Ryan, since we're getting married, I need to tell you the truth. I come from a line of witches, and I'll have to take 2 more husbands besides you. Can you accept that?" Ryan's mouth twitched. After a long moment, he said, "Sure. Anything for you, babe." I continued. "There's a tradition when one of my family marries. We must place a binding spell on our husbands. The husband has to swear an oath to the charm that he will never betray her. Are you willing?" Ryan didn't take it seriously at all. He grinned and said, "Of course I am." So he looked at my little box and swore an oath. "If I ever betray Mia, my life and fortune will become hers." "All right, my love, I've made my vow. Now can we please go to bed?" Ryan said, pouncing on me impatiently. I gently stroked his face. "You've done well." With a flick of my finger, the tiny binding worm flew from the box and into Ryan's body. From that day on, we were bound together, his fortune tied to mine. If I lived to be 100, he would too, protected from sickness and harm. But if he betrayed me, the worm would devour him bite by bite, feeding the master charm inside me. He wanted to take me to hotels almost every day, and I let him, enjoying the intimacy with my new husband. When I brought up getting a marriage license, Ryan would change the subject. His evasiveness made me a little suspicious. Even though the binding ritual had already made us husband and wife in the eyes of my people, I was in the modern world now, and Ryan was a city guy. We should follow the local customs. "My mom says we should wait until the baby is born to get married," Ryan said helplessly. I frowned. "But I read that if we're not married when the baby is born, it's a nightmare to get a birth certificate here. How about this? If you don't want to get the license, you can come live with me in my hometown. If you're worried about your parents and sister, we can bring them with us." Ryan's face paled as he shook his head. "No, how could we go live with you in the countryside?" I tilted my head, confused. "Are you saying I should take the baby back to my hometown by myself?" Ryan immediately shot that down. "No." I asked him, "Then what do you want?" Ryan ran his hands through his hair in frustration. That night, he was on the phone for a full hour. He stepped out onto the balcony to get some privacy, even sliding the glass door shut. But my hearing is sharp. I could faintly hear a girl crying on the other end. The voice sounded familiar. Was it Jenna? I wasn't sure. The next day, Ryan greeted me with a smile. "Come on, let's go get our marriage license." And just like that, we were married. There was no big ceremony, no rings, no family announcement. I was a little puzzled, but since I felt Ryan was the one making the bigger sacrifice, I decided to respect his preferences. After the wedding, I moved into the family's townhouse. Ryan was obsessed with having a baby, and soon I was pregnant. Ryan and his family let out a collective sigh of relief. "Mia, let's get a blood test. If it's a boy, we'll keep it. If it's a girl, we'll get an abortion." That's what Ryan said to me when I was 2 months pregnant. I was furious. "We're keeping this baby, whether it's a boy or a girl. It's rare for women of my line to have girls, because only daughters can inherit our bloodline. We'll see when the time comes," Ryan said. He took me to a private clinic for a blood draw, which was sent to a specialty lab overseas to determine the gender. The report came back quickly. A boy. I was a little disappointed, but I quickly cheered up. There was still plenty of time. I would eventually have a daughter to carry on my lineage. Ryan's family was overjoyed. Jenna leaned in close to my belly, listening for a moment before smiling. "Mia, when the baby is born, I'll take good care of him." I was a little touched. "Thank you." From then on, Ryan's family treated me with extreme care, forcing me to eat all sorts of nutritional supplements every day. I didn't like any of it, but for the sake of the baby, I endured it in silence. At 3 months pregnant, I felt the master charm inside me throb violently. Ryan had betrayed me. Honestly, I was a little surprised. For thousands of years, through countless generations, no husband had ever dared to betray a woman from my family. Our bond is that of master and servant, tied securely by the binding charm. The husband's life is held in his wife's hands. When we married, I had clearly explained the consequences to Ryan. How could he still dare to betray me? Following the pull of the charm, I called a car and told the driver to head south. About 40 minutes later, I arrived at a hotel known for hosting couples. As I got out of the car, the sensation I was tracking grew stronger. Avoiding the front desk staff, I went upstairs to room 504 and knocked on the door. The door opened and Ryan appeared. He looked like he had just showered, his short hair still wet, a white bathrobe wrapped around him. When he saw me, his face went pale. He stammered, "Mia? What are you doing here?" I pushed him aside and walked straight into the room. The bedsheets were a mess, looking very much like they did after Ryan and I had been together. I shot Ryan a fierce glare. "Mia, he stammered, standing frozen in the doorway. I heard the sound of a shower running in the adjacent bathroom. I walked over to the bathroom door and knocked. The water shut off, and a moment later the door opened. A familiar figure stepped out. "Don't be in such a rush," a woman's voice cooed playfully. When the woman saw me, the smile on her face froze. After a long moment, she said in a strained voice, "Mia." For a second, I couldn't believe my eyes. It was Jenna. I came here today expecting to catch him with some girl, but I never, ever imagined it would be her. Jenna was Ryan's own sister. I stared at them in disbelief. "What are you two doing?" Jenna looked at Ryan in a panic. Ryan quickly pulled her behind him. "Mia, we just had a few drinks and got a room to rest." I shot back. "So what were you doing before? Sleeping in the same bed?" Jenna's face went pale as she clutched her bathrobe tighter. Ryan said, "How is that possible? Jenna and I are brother and sister. We were just playing video games." Jenna's color returned slightly and she nodded. "Oh right, we were playing games." It was true that Ryan and Jenna often played online games together, but did they need to book a hotel room to do it? "Don't be so aggressive, Mia. We're siblings and we're close. There's no need to be so suspicious, is there?" Jenna said, her eyes fixed on me as she clung tightly to Ryan's arm. Her voice was soft. "Mia, Ryan may be your husband, but he's also my brother. If we're talking about who has a deeper bond, my brother and I are much closer." What was that supposed to mean? I frowned. Jenna pulled out her phone and played a TikTok video. In it, a girl was crying. The gist was that her brother had a new girlfriend, and when she texted him to ask him to pick something up for her, the girlfriend called her a manipulative bitch. The girl cried in the video, "Just because my brother has a girlfriend, does that mean his sister can't talk to him anymore?" The comments were all attacking the girlfriend and telling the girl, "If you let a woman like that become your sister-in-law, you're failing your duty." When I finished watching, Jenna put her phone away. "So do you get it now, Mia? You're his girlfriend, and I'm his sister. You're not allowed to be jealous." I furrowed my brow. My gut told me something was wrong, but I couldn't argue with her logic. Ryan and Jenna were brother and sister. No matter what, they wouldn't be sleeping together. Maybe they really did just book a room to play games. But the binding charm doesn't lie. An hour ago, Ryan had definitely been with someone else. Could Jenna be staying in the room to cover for some other woman? Regardless, Ryan had betrayed me. That was an undeniable fact. The binding worm inside Ryan sensed my fury and began to thrash wildly. Ryan cried out and doubled over. Jenna quickly helped him. "Ryan, what's wrong?" "My stomach hurts so bad," Ryan said, breaking out in a cold sweat. "Hospital. Get me to a hospital." In the end, Jenna called an ambulance, which took Ryan to the nearest hospital. The entire time I just watched coldly. At the hospital, I noticed Ryan and Jenna holding hands tightly, their concern for each other palpable. Jenna stayed by his side the whole time, and Ryan only spoke to her. I had become an invisible, irrelevant object. Seeing this, that uncomfortable feeling creeped back up inside me. The two of them were just too close. They had been this way ever since Ryan and I started dating. When Ryan and I went on dates, Jenna would often whine until she could come along, turning our private outing into a party of 3. When we went to an antique market, Ryan and Jenna bought matching black bracelets for themselves and a red one for me. Another time, Ryan and I went to a historic town alone. I went to the restroom, and when I came back, I saw Ryan in a jewelry shop buying a beautiful pair of earrings. I thought they were for me, but they ended up on Jenna's ears. I had gotten angry about how close they were before. Ryan explained, "Mia, Jenna is my sister. It's not what you think. Besides, Jenna has a boyfriend." 2 days later, a boy dropped Jenna off at home in his car. Jenna told me he was her boyfriend. I had put my suspicions to rest, but now after finding them in a hotel room playing games and seeing them act so clingy, I felt more and more that something was deeply wrong. "Mia, could you go buy Ryan some water?" Jenna instructed from the hospital room, still holding his hand. I turned and walked out. When I returned with the water, I found the door to the room slightly ajar. I could hear people talking inside. "How could you two be so careless? What if Mia found out?" It was my mother-in-law's voice. "Don't worry, Mom. Mia thinks Jenna and I are siblings. She won't suspect a thing," Ryan said. "Jenna, you should go back home for a while. Don't stay at our house," my mother-in-law said coldly. "Mom." Jenna's voice trailed off. "Don't call me Mom. I'm not your mother yet," she said. "I've already agreed to let you two be together, but only on the condition that Mia gives birth to the child. Once we have the baby, Ryan can divorce Mia, and you two can do whatever you want. But if you screw this up, Jenna, you will never be my daughter-in-law." "Yes," Jenna sobbed softly. It was like a lightning bolt had struck me. I stood outside the door, unable to believe what I was hearing. I forced myself to stay calm, stepped back, and then deliberately made my footsteps louder, as if I were just coming down the hall from the elevator. The conversation inside stopped abruptly. I pushed the door open. My mother-in-law greeted me with a huge smile. "Mia, thank you for going to all that trouble." Her smile was polite and warm, but a chill ran down my spine. "It was just a bottle of water. No trouble at all," I said, handing the water to Ryan. My mother-in-law smiled at me and said, "Mia, you should go home now. Your job is to rest and make sure you have a healthy baby." "My job is to have a baby." "Okay," I said, nodding as a wave of anger washed over me. As I walked out of the room, Ryan's blood-curdling scream echoed behind me. A cold smile touched my lips. Anyone who deceives me will pay the price. When I got home, I started tearing through the bedroom. I saw Ryan's collection of Legos and old CDs and, with a cold swipe of my arm, sent them crashing to the floor. The Legos and CDs shattered, and I ground them into pieces under my heel. The collection was worth tens of thousands of dollars, and was the apple of Ryan's eye. I wondered if he would cry when he got back from the hospital and saw the mess. Of course, I had no intention of stopping at just breaking his toys. That would be letting him off too easy. The real reason I was tearing the room apart was to find evidence. As the Lego set shattered, an envelope fell out from inside one of them. It was filled with handwritten love letters. There were letters he had written to Jenna and letters she had written to him. Page after page detailed the moment they first met and fell for each other, and all the things they had done for one another. The words were intimate and overflowing with love. Reading them, I trembled with rage. I went to the study, grabbed Ryan's laptop, and opened it. It was password protected. I hesitated for a moment, then thinking back to the birthdays mentioned in the letters, I typed in Jenna's. It opened. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. I didn't know much about computers, so I took the laptop to a tech repair shop outside the neighborhood and asked for help. For $1,000, an employee helped me recover Ryan's photos, hidden files, and text message history. The computer was filled with all sorts of disgusting photos of the two of them. Looking at them made my eyes burn. Ryan had logged into his messaging app on the computer, so his chat history with Jenna was synced. In their messages, they called each other hubby and wifey. The more I scrolled, the angrier I got. Thinking back to the conversation I'd overheard at the hospital and the way Jenna and Ryan acted together, I pieced together the whole story. Although Jenna's last name was Miller, the same as Ryan's, she wasn't his sister at all. They were a couple who had been together for 5 years. Jenna had a congenital heart defect and a chromosomal disorder, which meant she couldn't get pregnant. Ryan's parents were against their relationship. Ryan and Jenna fought hard, and eventually, his parents relented. They agreed that if Ryan could secure an heir to the family bloodline, Jenna could marry into the family. There was only one way to achieve that. Ryan had to get another woman pregnant, then marry Jenna. And so they chose me. Recalling all the details of how I met Ryan, I practically ground my teeth to dust. No wonder Ryan had fallen in love with me out of all the trendy and beautiful girls around. It was because I was from the countryside, had no background, and was easy to fool. He used to praise my authenticity, but what he really meant was that I was naive and gullible. The chat logs were horrifying. They fantasized about finding an excuse to divorce me and kick me out as soon as the baby was born, so they could live happily ever after. They called me a malicious woman, a country bumpkin who would jump into bed with a little flattery, a gold-digging, stupid fool who deserved to be tricked. Their words were utterly demeaning. They even said that even if I found out, there was nothing I could do because I was so greedy for money that they could just pay me to shut up. Reading their messages, I couldn't help but sneer. I deserved it? Huh. We'll see who deserves what. That evening, Ryan's family returned to the house. The binding worm couldn't stay active forever, it needed to rest. Ryan's stomach pain had subsided, and he was in relatively decent shape. He had spent the whole day at the hospital, undergoing a battery of tests that revealed nothing. The doctors finally gave a tentative diagnosis of acute gastroenteritis, gave him an 4-drip, and sent him home. I was sitting in the living room playing on my phone when Ryan walked into the bedroom. A moment later, he stormed out, furious. "Mia, what did you do?" He charged at me like a wild animal, eyes bulging, and raised his hand to hit me. I wasn't scared at all. I coolly lifted my gaze. "I'm carrying the one and only heir to the Miller family. You dare hit me?" Ryan's hand, about to strike my face, froze in mid-air. "Ryan, what are you doing?" his mother said, stepping forward to calm him down. "Go inside and rest." She smashed all the Legos and CDs I've collected over the years. Jenna yelled angrily from the bedroom. His mother froze, staring at me in disbelief. Ryan would yell at her if she so much as touched those things, yet I had destroyed them all. "So what if I did? What are you going to do about it?" I said, stroking my belly with a smirk. "Hit me." Ryan's fists were clenched, looking like he was about to explode but couldn't do anything. "If you're not going to do anything, then I will," I said. I stood up and, before anyone could react, slapped Ryan across the face. Smack. Ryan was stunned. Everyone else was too. "You hit me," Ryan said, touching his face in disbelief. "You don't believe I'd hit you?" I tilted my head and swung again, slapping his other cheek. His face instantly swelled up. "You fucking..." Ryan lunged at me in a rage. I stuck my belly out. "Go on, hit me." His parents rushed forward to hold him back, forcing the furious Ryan onto the sofa and begging him not to do anything. "Mia, how could you hit him?" Jenna said, stroking Ryan's face with concern. Without a word, I stepped forward and slapped Jenna hard across the face. I didn't hold back, and 5 red fingerprints instantly appeared on her cheek. "Jenna, are you okay?" Ryan jumped up, tenderly checking her face. Jenna shrank back onto the sofa, tears welling in her eyes, looking like a delicate flower that had been deeply wronged. "Mia, how could you hit people?" his mother demanded sharply. I stared at her coldly. "Your son and your daughter were fooling around in a hotel room. Don't they deserve a beating?" Her face stiffened. "I wasn't," Ryan shouted. "Jenna and I were just playing video games." Jenna immediately chimed in. "That's right, we were just playing games. Mia, don't slander us." Still denying it, even at this point. "You were playing games naked in a couple's suite? I caught you red-handed, and you still want to lie." I narrowed my eyes and threw the love letters I'd found onto the coffee table. "Then what are these?" Shock flickered in his mother's eyes. His father, who had just come home, picked up the letters with a grim expression, his face clouding over. His mother's tone softened. "Mia, there must be a misunderstanding. Please sit down. Don't get worked up and risk the baby." "Stop acting," I said coldly. Jenna isn't even your daughter. You all conspired to trick me. Embarrassment spread across his parents' faces. I sneered. Without their permission. How could Jenna come and go from the Miller house so freely? When Jenna called them Mom and Dad, they had always responded warmly. It was clear his parents had been in on the deception from the very beginning. I have witnesses and evidence. Don't I deserve an explanation? The pregnancy was making me tired, so I sat down on the sofa. Ryan, I'm giving you one chance to kneel and beg for my forgiveness. If you do, maybe I'll go easy on you. Ryan just sneered. Me kneel to you? In your dreams. I knew this day would come. All you want is money, right? Fine. I'll give you $5,000 a month in spending money. You just stay home, be a good little girl, and have the baby. Stay out of my business with Jenna. I stared at him incredulous. How dare he say something like that? With that, Ryan walked back to the bedroom with a swagger, not feeling an ounce of guilt. Jenna shot me a look, said nothing, and followed him into my and Ryan's bedroom, closing the door behind them as if they were the real married couple. Now that the truth was out, they couldn't even be bothered to pretend anymore. His parents looked at me awkwardly. His father said, Mia, our family has wronged you this time. But we have to look forward. Things are what they are. As long as you're willing to have this child, we'll meet your demands. My demands? I raised an eyebrow. Yes. We'll give you $150,000 as compensation. Will you please just have the baby? After the baby is born, if you want a divorce, you can have one. The child will stay with us. So, you knew about Ryan and Jenna from the start, and you planned to trick a woman into having a baby for you all along? His parents didn't say a word, but their condescending expressions showed they didn't have a shred of respect for me. $150,000. It would take someone from your village 10 lifetimes to save that much, his mother said. You should think about it. Is that so? I lifted my eyelids. Since you think it takes a country person 10 lifetimes to earn $150,000, how about this? I'll invite 10 of my relatives to live here, and you can support them for the rest of their lives. How does that sound? His father scoffed. So this is all about getting me to support your poor relatives. Fine. Have them come work at my company. I'll arrange jobs for them. I smiled and made a phone call. The next day, 10 tall, muscular young men from my hometown showed up at the front door of the house. I was a little surprised to see them. I had asked my family to send over a few deadbeat troublemakers to stir things up, but instead, they sent me 10 strong, strapping guys, and every single one of them was handsome. Mia, our great-grandmother heard what happened and sent us here for you to choose from. Please don't be angry, one of the young men said. You can pick 2 of us to be your husbands. I was speechless. Great-grandma, that's not what I meant at all. But since they were here, I had no choice but to bring them into the house. When I led the large group inside, Ryan's family and Jenna were stunned. When they learned that these men were all my potential future husbands, Ryan's jaw dropped. Since you're clearly not capable of taking care of me, I'll just find someone who can, I said coldly to Ryan. It's not like you're my only option. Immediately, a handsome, dark-skinned young man from the group helped me to the sofa and attentively poured me a cup of tea. Ryan and Jenna were speechless. Jenna bit her lip and said, Mia, you and Ryan aren't divorced. How can you be messing around with other men? I gave her a cold look. Oh, so you do know Ryan and I aren't divorced. Then why don't you get the hell out? What exactly are you doing here? Jenna's face went pale. Ryan quickly wrapped his arms around Jenna, as if she were a delicate flower being tormented by a wicked woman. Mia, don't take it too far. I glanced up at him. Ryan, the women from my family have a long memory when they've been wronged. I'd advise you to get on your knees and beg for forgiveness now. Otherwise. Ryan snorted, about to curse at me, but the 10 young men behind me glared at him, and he swallowed his words. Since my father-in-law agreed to take care of my relatives, please make good on your promise. This house is barely big enough for them. As for your family, get out, I said. Ryan exploded. Mia, you're insane. You're my wife, and now you've brought all these men here, and you're telling us to get out. Are you out of your mind? I sneered. Ryan, I told you before we got married that I come from a line of witches, and can take up to 3 husbands. You agreed to it back then. I thought you were joking, he yelled, looking frantic. My people don't joke, I said, stepping closer to him. And I wasn't joking when I put that curse on you either. Ryan's face changed. Do you know why your stomach hurts so much? I said calmly. That's the binding charm stirring. Finally, a look of fear crossed Ryan's face. I don't believe you. I let out a soft laugh and snapped my fingers. Ryan let out a cry of agony and collapsed to the floor, clutching his stomach and writhing in pain. Please get out, the young men from my hometown said in their accented English. Under the menacing stares of 10 young men, Ryan's parents and Jenna frantically helped the suffering Ryan and rushed him to the hospital. Once they were gone, I rubbed my temples and said wearily to the 10 men, I know you don't want to be my husbands. You can go back home. The 10 men looked at each other. Suddenly, one of the taller, handsome ones stepped forward, placed a hand on his chest, and bowed deeply to me. Mia, jag me willing. You're. I looked at his dark, handsome face, and a memory of playing with a boy in my childhood flashed through my mind. You're Aaron? It's me, Aaron said, nodding excitedly, his eyes shining. Mia, I've always wanted to be your husband. Why didn't you choose me? I thought you went to college. You have a bright future. Why would you want to be my husband? I asked, surprised. I will take 3 husbands. You can't possibly be okay with that. Aaron stood up and stepped closer. Mia, I want to be your husband, but I hope you'll only marry me. How dare you? The other young men were shocked, reprimanding him for his audacity. I raised a hand to quiet them and said to Aaron, the reason the women of my family take 3 husbands is to ensure we have a daughter to carry on the bloodline. I can marry just you, but you have to guarantee that I can have a daughter. That's the rule of our ancestors, the tradition of our clan. It cannot be broken. My words left Aaron in stunned silence. The 10 men were giving me a headache. I sent 6 of them to a hotel, and kept 4 that I liked at the house to help me. As I passed through the living room later, I saw Aaron on a tablet. After he left, I walked over. The screen was filled with search results. How to conceive a girl. Secret methods for having a daughter. Do these things to guarantee you'll have a girl. I was speechless. He's serious? I walked away without a word. After a night of agony, Ryan seemed to have come to his senses. He called me in the morning, ready to surrender and hoping to resolve the conflict peacefully. I slowly finished the breakfast Aaron had prepared for me, got ready, and then leisurely made my way to the hospital. A peaceful resolution? In his dreams. Now I was going to settle the score. Mia, please just remove the curse from him. Ryan's parents begged at the hospital. After a night of torment with no relief, they were finally forced to believe that I had cursed him. I sat in a chair without saying a word. Aaron spoke up. He betrayed Mia. Does he think a simple apology is enough? He needs to show some real remorse for the harm he's caused. Ryan's father asked, Mia, what compensation do you want? I smiled. It's simple. I want Ryan to draw up a will stating that upon his death, all his assets will be inherited by my son. Ryan, write your will. A will. Their faces all changed. I'm not dead yet. Why would I write a will? Ryan said nervously. I lifted my eyes. Don't worry. You will be soon. Mia, what on earth did you do to me? Ryan struggled to get out of the hospital bed. I walked over and kicked him hard in the stomach. He screamed and collapsed. Mia, you're hitting him, his mother shrieked. Jenna let out a cry of alarm. I smiled sweetly and kicked Ryan again. I am hitting him. What are you going to do about it? Ryan scrambled up from the floor in a rage, but Aaron, who was standing nearby, punched him, sending him sprawling again. When Jenna tried to help him, I gave her a light kick that sent her tumbling to the ground. I'm calling the police, his mother yelled. Mia, don't think you can do whatever you want just because you have backup. I walked towards her, my belly protruding. Go ahead. I'm a pregnant woman. You all conspired to trick me into this marriage, and you almost beat me last night. Let's see whose side the police take. My mother-in-law was speechless. I had the evidence of their marriage fraud. If the police were called, they would be the ones in real trouble, not me. Besides, with Ryan under my curse, they were afraid to make a move. Seeing her back down, I walked back over to Ryan, put my foot on his chest, and looked defiantly at his parents, who were fuming but silent. I'm hitting him again. What do you have to say now? Their eyes burned with rage, but they didn't stop me. Ha! I loved seeing them so furious and yet so utterly powerless. Ryan squealed like a pig under my foot. And so, right in front of his parents, I beat him to a pulp, and they didn't dare say a single word. Doctors and nurses rushed in when they heard the commotion. I stared brazenly at Ryan's parents. They gritted their teeth and reluctantly told the medical staff, "It's nothing." Ryan's face was swollen like a balloon. Anyone could see he'd been beaten. But his parents kept denying it. When the doctors and nurses asked Ryan, he looked at his parents, who were frantically signaling him, and said through clenched teeth, "No one hit me. I fell." The doctors and nurses were speechless. They left the room, completely baffled. Once they were gone, I said coolly, "Write the will. Don't waste any more time." After the beating, they finally started to cooperate. In the end, Ryan was forced to write a will, and they even had a lawyer come to notarize it. Is that good enough? Now get rid of the curse, Ryan said through gritted teeth after signing the document. I reviewed the will and chuckled. My son's future is secured. Now it's time to discuss my personal compensation. Personal compensation? They all stared at me in shock. I narrowed my eyes. The inheritance goes to the child. That's only natural. How is that compensation for me? Even if it is, it's for the child. You still haven't compensated me. Then what do you want? His mother asked with a frown. I sat down, crossing my legs. Simple. As payment for your marriage fraud, you will transfer half of your company's shares to me. Half the shares? That's outrageous. His parents hadn't even spoken before Jenna burst out in anger. I raised an eyebrow, pulled a stack of photos from my bag, and tossed them into the air. As the photos fluttered to the ground, Jenna and the others bent down to pick them up. Their faces changed dramatically when they saw what was on them. Don't look. Seeing his father reach for a photo, Jenna rushed over and shoved him. The 60-year-old man stumbled back and hit the wall, his face turning pale. Jenna ignored him and frantically gathered the photos from the floor. Her father-in-law glared at her but held his tongue. Don't bother picking them up. I have the negatives. I can print as many as I want, I said, staring coldly at Jenna. The photos on the floor were explicit pictures of her and Ryan, the really scandalous kind. Jenna, you're going to have to pay up too, I said coldly. What do you want? Jenna asked, clutching the last of the photos and staring at me with hatred. First, get on your knees, bow your head to the floor, and admit that you're a worthless bitch, I said, holding up one finger. My people don't operate like others, who believe in turning the other cheek. Our way of life is more like a wolf pack's. We are fiercely loyal and honest with our own, but we show no mercy to our enemies. When we strike, we make sure they never dare to cross us again. Jenna trembled, looking pleadingly at Ryan. I said coldly, kneel, or I'll throw every one of these photos out the window. Ryan had also seen the pictures. His face was ashen. He sat up frantically in bed. Mia, what you're doing is illegal. Don't you country people understand anything about privacy rights? Plus, distributing photos like this is a crime. You could go to jail. I shot him a smirk and gently patted my stomach. Jail? Can a pregnant woman go to jail? Ryan and Jenna froze. I slowly rose from my chair and walked over to Ryan. Even if I killed you today, I said coldly, you tricked me into marriage. I'm pregnant, and I'm from a protected minority group. I would never go to prison. Understand? At that, Ryan completely panicked. True fear filled his eyes. The family fell silent. I bet they were regretting ever targeting me. They thought I was just some powerless country girl, but it turned out I was not only from a minority group, but also had a powerful family behind me. I turned and slapped Jenna across the face. I told you to kneel. Jenna burst into tears, but no one came to her aid. She sank to the floor, covering her face and whimpering. I'm sorry. You what? She sniffled. I am a worthless bitch. Remember what you just said? I said with a satisfied nod. You knelt on the ground and admitted, with your own mouth, that you're a worthless bitch. Seeing as you're showing a little remorse, pay me $3 million, and I'll give you back the photos. I won't leak them either. We women of the mountains value our integrity. We keep our promises. $3 million? Jenna looked up at me, her face a mask of disbelief. That money is to buy these photos, both yours and Ryan's, I said. I'm being generous, don't you think? Jenna immediately turned to Ryan. Ryan, this is extortion, his parents finally snapped, unable to stay silent any longer. You're the ones who kept saying I was a vain gold digger, only after your money, I sneered. Today, I'll show you what a real gold digger looks like. I said half the company's shares. Are you going to sign them over or not? The family and Jenna stared at me, their eyes filled with a mixture of rage and terror. I held Ryan's life in my hands. I was carrying their only grandchild, and I had proof of their conspiracy. They were trapped. In the end, after a series of negotiations, they paid $3 million for the photos and signed the stock transfer agreement. Once everything was done, I finally allowed the binding charm to quiet down, and then I turned and walked out of the room with Aaron. Outside the hospital, I let out a cold laugh. Ryan, Jenna, we're not done yet. I contacted Jenna's current boyfriend and arranged to meet him. In a coffee shop, I handed him a stack of papers, printouts of my husband's and his girlfriend's text conversations. Your girlfriend, Jenna, is having an affair with my husband, I said, laying out the entire story of how the Miller family and Jenna had conspired to trick me into a sham marriage. Jenna's boyfriend was well off and didn't believe me at first. It wasn't until he read the chat logs that he realized he'd been duped. Jenna probably never told you she has a congenital heart condition and a chromosomal issue, which means she can't have children, I said. When the four of us went on dates, they were just using us as cover to be together. After Jenna had announced she had a boyfriend, we had gone on a few double dates. They had always been so happy and playful, while her boyfriend and I just quietly followed along. I hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now that the truth was out, her boyfriend's face turned green with rage. I'll make them pay for this, he said, grabbing the papers and storming out. A couple of days later, I heard the news. Jenna's ex-boyfriend had caused a huge scene at her office, posted their chat logs online, and plastered them all over her neighborhood. Just like that, Jenna's reputation at work and at home was ruined. He had asked me more than once for the explicit photos of Jenna and Ryan, but I had taken their $3 million and kept my promise not to release them. Instead, he started showing up at Jenna's house every day, causing a scene. He even leaked her private information, including the fact that she had a heart condition and a chromosomal disorder. Now everyone knew Jenna was sick, couldn't get pregnant, was sleeping around with other men, and was part of a marriage scam. He tormented her until she was beyond tears. While Jenna's life was in chaos, the Miller household was suspiciously quiet. After I brought up taking possession of the shares, Ryan and his family disappeared. Aaron did some digging and found out that a privately signed stock transfer agreement is worthless unless it's officially announced at a board meeting. I'd seen so many TV shows where people signed over stock agreements that I thought a signature was all it took. Now that the family had vanished, the papers I held were useless. No wonder his father had signed the agreement so easily. This was his plan all along. Aaron was furious with himself. I don't know anything about business. I let them trick you. I reassured him. It's okay. They can run, but they can't hide. The Millers couldn't hide forever. Besides, Ryan still had my binding charm inside him. The more he hated me, the more agitated the worm would become. I didn't believe he could endure it for more than a week or two. It was a waiting game to see who would break first. I thought they would hold out for a while before surrendering, but I never imagined they would be even more ruthless than I expected. One day, I went out to run some errands with only Aaron by my side. As we walked down a quiet street, several large men suddenly jumped out and surrounded us. We were outnumbered. Aaron and I were tied up and taken to an abandoned building in the suburbs. When they took off my blindfold, I saw the grim faces of the Miller family. Undo the curse on Ryan right now, or we'll kill you, his father commanded, stepping in front of me. I raised an eyebrow. We've done our research these past few days. We know that even with a curse, If you kill the one who cast it, the spell will be broken, he said calmly. As the head of a company, he'd quickly found a solution. I suggest you cooperate. He was right. There were only two ways to break the binding curse. Either I released it myself, or they killed me. If the master charm inside me died, the lesser one in Ryan would wither away. Dad, just kill her. Jenna rushed out from somewhere, her voice urgent. If we don't kill this bitch, what's to stop her from cursing us again? We can't spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders. Her father-in-law hesitated. Her mother-in-law said, but she's carrying our grandchild. Jenna shot back. Mom, are you seriously going to keep this woman's child? She's a witch. Even if she has the baby, do you really think it will listen to you? It's better to kill her and the bastard in her belly together. We can just find another woman from a clean background to have our baby. Her words sent a tremor of indecision through the family. Jenna's right, his father nodded. If you don't pull out the weed by its roots, it will just grow back. Jenna let out a sigh of relief and turned to me, a cruel, triumphant smile on her face. Is that so? Are you sure you can kill me? I asked with a grin. You've been so focused on me, have you checked on Ryan? He might already be dead. And if he's dead, and then I die, your grandchild will be gone too. His parents' faces went white. They frantically called the hospital to check on Ryan's condition. A moment later, they confirmed he was still alive and breathed a sigh of relief. I offered a helpful reminder. I can make him die at any moment. With just a single thought, he'll be gone. And the only heir to your family is still inside my belly. You can certainly kill me, but I can take Ryan and your grandchild with me. Want to make a bet? Let's see who dies first, Ryan or me. His parents' faces darkened. They were trapped. I activated the master charm. Mom, Dad, it hurts. It hurts so bad. Ryan's agonized screams came through the phone. I smiled sweetly. See, I can make Ryan die whenever I want. Their faces turned ashen. I sneered. If I could make Ryan die first, they couldn't kill me, because the baby in my belly would be their only remaining heir. If Ryan died, they would have to protect me, making me even safer. I just realized it's actually better for me if Ryan dies. So let's just let him die, I said. Don't. His parents had figured it out too. They rushed forward to untie me. Mia, we were out of our minds to do this. Please don't hold it against us. With their son's life and the family legacy on the line, they didn't dare to gamble. I smiled slowly. I had won this round completely. His mother said, Mia, kidnapping you today was Jenna's idea. It wasn't what we wanted to do. With a wave of her hand, she had the large men seize a stunned Jenna and drag her in front of me. My dear daughter-in-law, she is the root of all this trouble. I never liked her from the start, never wanted her in our family, and look at all the problems she's caused. It's all my fault for being too soft. Now she's yours. Do with her as you please. The situation had turned on a dime. Jenna was completely bewildered, struggling on the ground. How could you do this to me? Shut up. This is all your fault. The surrogacy idea was yours too. If it weren't for you, my Ryan could have married any woman he wanted. We could have had a grandchild the right way. Why would we need to do something illegal? His mother yelled. Jenna's face went pale. Hit her. Seeing me watching coldly, his mother ordered the men. One of them stepped forward and began slapping Jenna. The sound was crisp and clear. Jenna couldn't understand why she was the one getting hurt. She cried as the blows rained down. Aaron, unable to stand it, clenched his fists and walked toward her. Jenna's eyes filled with terror. I have a heart condition. You can't hit me. Then she slumped to the ground, pretending to faint. I smiled faintly. Dad, Mom, I don't have the right to punish anyone. I'll leave this matter to you. Her in-laws quickly agreed. Jenna was carried away by the men. We returned from the suburbs without calling the police. If I had, it might have pushed them to a point of no return. I wasn't about to let them off the hook before I got what I wanted. To appease me, his father promised that I would be their only daughter-in-law and that once the baby was born, it would be the sole heir to the Miller fortune. He called a board meeting and officially transferred the shares to me. He even gave me an extra $10 million as a gesture of goodwill. After all this was done, a half-dead Ryan was sent home. Looking at my new account balance, I mercifully instructed the binding charm to stop. Ryan, do you hate me? I asked him. How could I? Ryan struggled to sit up in bed, then knelt before me and kowtowed. Wife, I was wrong. A prodigal son's return is worth more than gold. Honey, let's live a good life together from now on. His tone was exceptionally humble and shameless. A late apology meant nothing to me now. I smiled. Ryan, let me tell you the real way to solve your little worm problem. He looked up, his eyes wide with anticipation. I laughed. The worm's pain comes from your hatred for me. As long as you don't hate me, the worm won't be agitated. Even if I were to make it move around inside you, the pain would be no worse than a tapeworm. You could just bear it. But if you're filled with hatred for me, the worm will become especially frenzied, burrowing all over inside you, causing unbearable agony. Ryan forced a smile. Wife, how could I ever hate you? You'd better not, I said, turning away without a second glance. His love or his hate was no longer my concern. Not long after, word came from my hometown summoning the young people back. Aaron and the others had to leave. Before he left at the train station, Aaron asked me with red-rimmed eyes, Mia, am I not good enough? I was a little embarrassed. I don't have any plans to take another husband right now. Seeing he wouldn't leave, I said, exasperated. We'll talk about it later. If I can't have a daughter, I'll naturally have to take a second husband. Behind me, Ryan's face turned green. Aaron sighed in relief. He looked at Ryan behind me and said scornfully, Look at him. You can tell he's not capable of giving you a daughter. Ryan was speechless. I silently agreed. After everything that had happened, there was no way I would ever let Ryan touch me again. He would never be the father of my daughter. Don't worry, Mia. I'll definitely find a way to make sure you have a daughter, Aaron promised solemnly. I wanted to tell him, just go, big guy. Can't you see everyone is staring at us? Finally, Aaron walked into the crowded train station and was gone. I hadn't decided what to do with Ryan. I had considered killing him, but his recent behavior had been surprisingly docile, and he had given me a lot of money. I was hesitating. After all, I had gone to college. I knew you couldn't just go around killing people. His parents were incredibly polite to me, treating me like an honored guest. A divorce was inevitable, but I hadn't decided when or how to deal with them, so I let things drag on. While I was hesitating, Ryan suddenly said to me, Honey, I have to go on a business trip for a while. I nodded, indifferent. Our living situation was bizarre. I was living in the Miller house, and the family was fawning over me, but Ryan and I no longer shared a room. He was less my husband and more my servant. Ryan packed his things and left. Not long after, I once again felt the chaotic stirrings of the binding charm inside him. I was surprised. Was Ryan cheating on me again? Wasn't he afraid of me? Following the charm's pull, I took a taxi to a hotel, just in time to see Ryan and Jenna walking out the main entrance, arm in arm. His father had told me he'd taken care of Jenna, sending her out of the city for good. Thinking she was no longer a threat, I had accepted his solution. I never expected that Jenna hadn't left at all, and was still with Ryan. The sight of them, so intimate and carefree, made all of Ryan's groveling and apologies seem like a joke. I stood on the street, watching them in silence. They didn't notice me as they walked away, laughing and talking. I slowly smiled. Ryan, Jenna, you brought this on yourselves. Don't blame me. I turned and went to the nearest infectious disease hospital, found out which floor housed the AIDS patients. I slipped into the stairwell on that floor, held out my hand, and sent out my charms. They flew from patient to patient, taking a tiny, painless bite from each of their necks, collecting their blood. The charms, now fat and full, swelled up like giant moths, their bodies glowing a blood-red color. For people who love to mess around, AIDS is the most fitting end, isn't it? That night, I was lying in bed with my eyes closed when I heard a faint noise. The bedroom door opened, and several people tiptoed in. Mia. It was Ryan's voice. I didn't move. He called my name twice more, but I remained still. Looks like the sleeping pills worked. Jenna's voice was laced with excitement. We owe Mom for this one. If she hadn't put the pills in the soup and coaxed Mia into drinking it, this wouldn't have gone so smoothly, Ryan said. Hurry up and get her out of here. We'll put her in the self-driving car. Once she's dead, this will all be over." His mother's voice was stern. "Ryan, once this is done, you and Jenna are through. I don't want a barren, malicious woman like her as my daughter-in-law." "Mom, I know everything you've done. Are you trying to cut me loose now that you don't need me?" Jenna's voice was ice cold. Incredibly, they started fighting right in front of me. From their argument, I put the pieces together. His parents did despise Jenna and had tried to get rid of her, but she had stubbornly contacted Ryan, who had hidden her away and used the business trip as a cover to see her. During this time, they had consulted doctors and even paid a hefty price to hire some kind of master to find a way to remove the binding charm from Ryan's body. Once the charm was gone, they obviously couldn't let me live. They planned to kill me to eliminate any future trouble, which led to tonight's little drama. His mother had pretended to be nice to me, putting sleeping pills in my soup. Once I was asleep, they planned to carry me out and stage a fatal car accident. "If you don't get going, the sun will be up soon," I said, opening my eyes to the three of them still arguing. The room fell silent. All three of them turned to stare at me. "Thank you all for coming to see me so late at night." I opened my palm, and several of my well-fed, blood-red charms flew out. "A little gift. I hope you like it." The charms flew to their necks, bit down, and injected all the collected blood into their bodies. All three of them screamed. "Mia, you cursed us again." Ryan yelled. "You're so vicious." "I'm a witch. Curses are my specialty," I said, sitting up slowly, a wicked smile on my lips. "Ryan, who told you a binding charm could be removed with surgery?" I gently nudged the master charm. Ryan let out a blood-curdling scream and collapsed, writhing on the floor. Jenna and his mother were stunned. It was only then that they understood. The binding charm was still inside Ryan's stomach. "What's wrong?" His father, who had been waiting outside, rushed into the bedroom, only to be bitten hard by one of the flying charms. When he saw that I was awake, his eyes filled with terror. "Since you've shown no mercy, don't blame me for being ruthless," I said with a smile, picking up my phone. "I'm tired of playing games with you." I had suspected his mother had drugged my food, so I was just playing along. 5 minutes later, the police arrived. I told them everything. How they had tricked me into a sham marriage to have a baby and then conspired to kill me. I had already installed cameras and recorders in the bedroom, capturing all their words and actions. The soup was also tested and found to contain sleeping pills. As for the marriage fraud, I had the early chat logs and photos as evidence. All of them were arrested. His father said, "Officer, we had a reason for doing this. This woman put a curse on my son. We were forced to fight back. She's a witch, a practitioner of black magic." I looked innocently at the police. "Officer, do you really believe in curses?" The police were already disgusted by the family's actions. The lead officer barked at the father. "You attempted to commit murder, and now you're trying to slander the victim." No one believed them. The entire Miller family, along with Jenna, was taken to jail. During the investigation, the family initially claimed I had cursed them. When they saw no one believed that, they changed their story to say I had poisoned them. But the police checked all the security footage, examined everything in the house, and spoke with doctors at multiple hospitals. Not a single doctor believed Ryan had been poisoned. The family was dumbfounded. They changed their story again, claiming I had assaulted Ryan, and they had been forced to defend themselves. But they had no evidence. After all, the last time I had beaten Ryan up at the hospital with Aaron, they had personally denied to the doctors that I had assaulted them, stating that Ryan's injuries were from a fall. On my side, the evidence of marriage fraud, adultery, and attempted murder was overwhelming. It was clear who was in the right and who was in the wrong. Seeing the case was already decided against him, the father, who hadn't been directly involved in the final murder plot, was released from custody. He immediately offered me a large sum of money in exchange for a settlement. I told him, "Let's see how sincere you are. It cost you $3 million for the photos. Your lives should be worth more than a few pictures, right?" "I understand," he said politely. A few days later, he transferred all of his company shares to me and signed over most of the family's valuable assets to my name as a sign of his sincerity. I wasn't sure if he had transferred everything, but assets worth hundreds of millions were certainly enough for me to agree to provide a letter of understanding. After taking their money, I made a point of finding Jenna and telling her what had happened. I asked her sweetly, "Do you have any money? If you do, I can provide a letter for you too." Desperate, Jenna called Ryan for money, but of course he refused. The family's assets had all been given to me. Why would they bleed themselves dry to save Jenna? Jenna had a complete breakdown, screaming that Ryan was heartless. Ryan screamed right back at her. The so-called lovers were tearing each other apart over money. I was more than happy to watch the show. Ryan abandoned Jenna. Not wanting to go to prison, she had no choice but to call her parents for money. Jenna's parents came to me, crying and begging, but I was unmoved. I had only one question. "Do you have the money?" Their daughter had done so many terrible things. Were they, as parents, completely unaware? When a child is not taught, the parents are to blame. Jenna's arrogance and her willingness to defraud and even kill without a second thought were surely the result of a poor upbringing. Her parents had to pay a price. Jenna's parents were not wealthy. They had no choice but to sell their 3 properties at a steep discount, empty their savings, and borrow money from friends and relatives to scrape together $50 million. Once I received the money, I generously provided the letter of understanding. After this ordeal, Jenna and Ryan's relationship was completely shattered. Their families had a massive falling out, but were forced to stick together to weather the storm. The lawyers the Miller family hired were very good. They communicated actively with me, and since I had taken their money, I had to keep my promise. In the end, I changed my story, stating that they had not tried to kill me, and they in turn proved their innocence, claiming it was all a domestic dispute and no murder had been intended. Frustrated, the police had no choice but to release everyone. By this time, my belly was very large. As soon as they were out, I filed for divorce from Ryan. "Once we're divorced, you and Jenna can finally be together openly," I said with a smile. "Who would want to marry this piece of trash?" Jenna shrieked. Ryan said with a cold face, "And I don't want to marry a barren hen, especially one who's not even healthy." They stood at the prison gates, screaming at each other, looking like they wanted to tear each other's hair out. A stark contrast to their previous lovey-dovey act. They used to call what they had true love. So much so that they were willing to trick someone into bearing a child for them. They thought it was only his parents standing in their way. Now, they finally understood that their so-called love was nothing but pure selfishness. They only ever loved themselves. After the mandatory waiting period, I went with my large belly and finalized the divorce with Ryan. "Mia, do we really have to get a divorce? I know I was wrong. I'll never make that mistake again. Why don't you have the baby first and then we can talk?" Ryan begged. I asked, "Aren't you afraid I'll put another curse on you?" Ryan's face went white. He didn't dare say another word. I stroked my belly. Of course, I would never give my child to the Miller family. He would take my last name and be raised among my people. After the dust settled, the Miller family was a shadow of its former self. Whether Ryan could find another woman to marry was his own business. But our messy divorce had become public knowledge. I doubted any sane woman would marry him now. And if she married him just for his money, well, too bad. Ryan's will had been notarized. Upon his death, all his assets would go to my child. If he wanted to change that will, he'd have to consider the consequences of angering me again. I left the city and returned to my mountain hometown to have my baby. Ryan and his family thought their ordeal was finally over. But unfortunately for them, my real revenge was just beginning. As expected, Ryan, his parents, and Jenna were all diagnosed with AIDS. They probably guessed I was behind it, but they had no proof and couldn't go to the police. They certainly didn't dare come looking for me in my hometown. They had no choice but to swallow their bitter pill. I heard that when Jenna's ex-boyfriend found out about her diagnosis, he blasted it all over social media, completely destroying what was left of her reputation. Jenna disappeared overnight. I no longer had any mercy for Ryan. The binding charm would relentlessly drain his life force and fortune to feed the master charm inside me. With that and an AIDS diagnosis, how long he lived was up to fate. It's not that I'm cruel. I gave Ryan many chances. They were the ones who kept pushing my limits, who tried to kill me time and time again. They got what they deserved. Soon, I gave birth to a healthy, lively little boy. I didn't tell the Miller family. They were all going to die out soon anyway. It didn't matter if he had a father or grandparents. I used the money I got from their family to start a charitable foundation dedicated to helping women. We women of the mountains don't care about wealth. If I really wanted to make money, with my skills, I could have amassed a fortune long ago. We prefer to live in harmony with nature. After Aaron's relentless pursuit, I took him as my husband. He spent his days researching how to have a daughter. According to our tradition, if a woman can't produce a daughter, she must take up to 3 husbands. He didn't want me to take a third, so he tried everything, every folk remedy and secret method he could find. Finally, 2 years later, I became pregnant again and gave birth to a daughter. When the news spread that I had a girl, the entire village celebrated. Everyone was amazed that Aaron had managed to help me conceive a daughter on the first try. Aaron was glowing with pride, holding court and explaining his secrets to having a girl. On the very day my daughter was born, the binding charm flew across the country and returned to the master charm inside me. That's how I knew Ryan was dead. That he managed to hold on for 3 years was both his good fortune and his punishment. I imagine those 3 years were incredibly difficult for him. The torment of his illness, the constant fear of death hanging over him. It was more than enough time for him to deeply regret ever crossing me. Jenna, with her heart condition and AIDS, was never heard from again. Ryan's parents, having lost their only son and suffering from their own illnesses, were said to have taken to their beds, just waiting to die. Their end may seem tragic, and it may make me seem ruthless. But in reality, if I hadn't been a woman of magic, if I had just been an ordinary, naive girl from the countryside, I would have 100% been used as a surrogate, then discarded with nothing, never to see my child again. Given that they were willing to kidnap and kill, if I had been just a normal girl who fought back, I probably would have been forced to take sleeping pills, put in a self-driving car, and died in a convenient accident. They got exactly what they deserved. With the binding charms in hand, I could have taken 2 more husbands. But as I looked at the strong, tall Aaron and my 2 beautiful children, I decided to put the charms away for good. I hated that Ryan had betrayed me, and I didn't want to cause Aaron the same pain. How could someone who truly loves you, like Ryan claimed to, marry another woman just to have a child? That's not love. It's just selfishness disguised as love. I've been through it. I would never put someone I love through the same thing. That's what real love is. The end.